Hey guys, hello. Dana here, known by some as Dana Spirit Butterfly, as that is the label under which I offer these types of videos and things. I'm offering this video as an offering. I've said that a few times already as a word. Offering because we live in a time where most of us are shifting from the old patterns into new patterns, and the new patterns don't have a lot of external role modeling. They're an internal, emergent, embodied landscape that is exactly what the rising sacred feminine is about. Feminine, not women. I mean, obviously it involves women, but men also have feminine energy. And so when we talk about the rising sacred feminine, forgive me if that triggers you, because it may do. A lot of people are like, ugh, feminine conversations. This is a little bit, insert whatever your opinion is. I mentioned the feminine landscape because my own experience of healing from a neurological condition, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, autoimmune conditions, I've had quite a few of them. Healing those has come off the back of repairing my own relationship with the feminine landscape. And when we're talking about a time space moment where we're noticing certain phenomena like the large amounts of wealth that is being held by the few who are making decisions on our behalf, who are controlling science, medicine, education, business, markets, social media during this time period, I find I ask myself a better question. Eventually, I ask myself a better question. Is there another way? How can we walk in a way that serves us, supports us, and leaves us intact, gives us back our sacred voice? And that is a feminine landscape. And feminine energy is not counter to being a man. Feminine energy is a process. It's a way of moving with the environment that helps us to nurture, nourish, and rejuvenate space and time, including our bodies, our minds, our hearts, our relationships, and the greater cosmos. We are all participating in this, and unfortunately, people are getting triggered by labels and are not peering behind what the labels actually mean. And that is a bit sad, but let's move forwards. Today's video is an energy forecast. Again, you might get triggered by energy. I hope not. I hope you're already aware that energy is everything and everything is energy, including our physical bodies, including our mental minds, including our beautiful, luscious, and also sometimes destructive feeling emotions, and our greater relationship with the cosmos and the spirit world. All of these things are more easily communicated via an awareness or an acceptance that everything is energy. And energy, of course, is non-specific, just like the spirit world, the great consciousness sometimes comes in sensory awareness and not necessarily with a face or a body or an individualized identity that we can name, maybe a spirit guide or an ancestor or, a person we've loved and lost, or even, parts of us in the world. All of these are voices. They're parts of us, all very valid, all highly intelligent, and all essentially welcome when we cultivate certain skill sets to come back home to home and hearth, to where we land in space and time, otherwise known as presence. If you're starting to pick up on some of these keywords, great, awesome. When you do start to accept that there is this energetic conversation moving in and through us all the time, you will probably navigate your reality more openly and more abundantly. You'll also be able to peer behind things that seem obvious and maybe closed to better understand actually that closed door may be an invitation to deepen into your sense awareness, to deepen into your free will, your ability to make a decision, your ability to choose your action, your ability to walk a path that maybe your ancestors never had the opportunity to walk. Because now is the time. heading into the end of the year, heading towards 2026, we are still in a process of shedding. The year of the snake is still here. Before I go any further, let me acknowledge I'm on Ghana country. Today I record this video paying my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, recognizing sovereignty was never ceded. I am a sixth generation born on this country woman, so my matrilineage have been here in Adelaide, South Australia since 1838. I've just discovered, just confirmed, my earliest ancestors arrived here very early in Adelaide's foundational years. Why is that important? Because the being that I walk forwards with here and now is interwoven with the stories of all of her, all of my matrilineage, all of the women and their journeys here on country as white women, as recent migrants, as feminine representatives of the old country in a landscape that didn't really match the environment of where they came from. Also heavily religious by necessity because the religion gave them a sense of belonging in a landscape that otherwise was a little bit scary for them and a little bit unknown. And that unknown continues to perpetuate so often, particularly with women, also with men, of course. We all experience anxiety. But when a woman has significant anxiety, especially around her relationship with men, some of this talks about that early generational trauma. We're not going to talk much further on that. If you're interested in that, this is what my rose work is about. And this is why rose has been so important. And just acknowledging rose, as you can see here in the corner, is one of my main spirit allies as I work to shake off some of the layers of the religiosity of my ancestors to deepen into my own embodied wisdom as I live here and now. This land recognizes me on some level as Indigenous, true and also not true. And so as I walk this path, knowing that helps me to unravel some of the hoarding and hiding that we've been conditioned to do as a part of patriarchal structures. And so I offer these offerings off of energy forecasts for free. You're not paying me to do this. I'm doing this because I feel called to do it and because it feels right for me personally. I do this to give you maybe an alternative landscape to view your world through. Perhaps some of the stuff I say will resonate with you personally. Hopefully, everything I say will encourage you to come back to home and hearth for you, whatever that means for you. Energy wisdom is a part of that conversation, for sure. It absolutely is. I've been doing these energy forecasts on the moon cycle, the lunar cycle, partially to break some of the entrenched patterns that we see in modern man and woman and other, where we see life as being a straight line, a linear movement where, you know, it's either day or night, black or white, left or right, masculine or feminine. In that landscape, which again is highly masculinized, is very much limited by some structures and forms that make certain things non-negotiable, closing down your available spectrum of awareness so that as you see through your eyes, you only see limited options and perspectives, particularly heading forwards. This will encourage you to hoard and hide, to hoard money and wealth so that you're protected financially, and also hide the things that maybe you're a bit paranoid or worried that they're going to be socially you'll be socially ostracized if you express those. And the challenge with the hoard and hide mentality is, yes, like spirit is reminding me that the hoard and hide mentality in a fashion is a legacy conversation. So it's something that our ancestors did. It's something that's been very much entrenched in a very long history of this relational wisdom with the church system, but also with public economy and the way governance has been structured for thousands of years, making certain things impossible if you are kicked out of the tribe, if you are not found as acceptable. For example, making money can be really difficult if nobody likes you in a fashion. But that, of course, is not strictly true because, as we notice, a lot of the big players with wealth, often they are very unlikable as people for so many reasons. But let's reorientate back to you. So cyclic nature, knowing about the lunar cycles, knowing that there's this thing called astrology. Of course, we use this term astrology a little bit reverently, but also loosely, because astrological movements and patterns, there are a number of variations or interpretations of astrology that make it still a little bit personalized and depersonalized. So if you were to sit down and listen to a reading by an astrologist, and I'm not an astrologer, I'm a spirit medium, if you were to listen to a conversation with an astrologist, the way that they would communicate what it is that they would have to say would come across as being a little bit fixed, a little bit structured, of course, but also if you tie your life and your wealth and your energy to these outcomes, then you'll lose a certain part of your potency and a certain part of your own internal magnetism. That doesn't mean that they don't have support to give you and guidance to support you as we move forwards. Because astrology often talks about what spirit often talks to me about collective fields. So it's a collective conversation. Often there are energetic influences that means that more people seem to be moving through particular waves of particular energetics, ideas, concepts, whether it be that relationships are a bigger thing right now or money is a bigger thing right now, for example. These types of things are universal conversations, and sometimes the collective field moves through or towards certain things more fully than others. And so, Spirit's saying to me, take what we say maybe with a grain of salt when we talk about what the energetics are, but we are hoping to inspire you to unhook from this fixed reality and to start to open up your gaze a little bit and to turn your attention towards your curious muscle, that which is, oh, that's interesting. Oh, wow, I noticed that. Turning inwards and letting this part of you start to see your relativity to certain waves of energy is a part of the gift of human, is a part of our evolutionary pathway. So what that means is that we have a new moon in Scorpio that happens on the 20th of November here in Australia. It will probably happen on the 19th in other parts of the world. But either way, this is the new moon in Scorpio. I'm recording this during the dark moon period. Now that you might go, oh, how is that related to me? Well, the moon as an energetic influence does impact us when we start to disconnect from the fixed reality, that kind of blindness that comes from being told that there's only this linear trajectory. We start to soften more into our human faculties and become more attuned to the waves and weaves of the natural world. And so the lunar cycle and where the moon is placed in terms of her cycle, you should be able to feel it. If you are appropriately resourcing to the land and to your bodies and to your sensory organs and systems, you will get a sense of the lunar situation and where it's actually at. The low moon, the dark moon, its energy is much more quiet. So during that period of time, some of us, not all of us, but some of us can get quite a lot of psychic insight because there's a less clutter in the field, less kinetic energy floating around in the psyche landscape. As we head into full moon, and we're heading into a full moon in Gemini on the 5th of December, as we head towards the full moon, energy starts to lift a little bit and things start to get a little bit more, I use the term kinetic, but there's a lot more movement in the psychic landscape, psyche, very much mental orientated energetics. Of course, these will influence your waves of the waters in your body, which is your emotional and chemical landscape. It should do if you're attuned to the land mass and your bodies. And it will subsequently then impact the way you feel in your body. So these energies do impact us on some level, subtle if you're overly mental, and non-subtle if you're actually letting go of controlling your thoughts and controlling your reality and trying to keep everything fitting in your own boxes. And if you slowly start to relax and let the natural world guide you and support you. From there, the spirit world is much more easier to not just hear, whether you hear it with your ears, whether or not you see it with your eyes, whether or not you just get the sense feelings in your body, or whether or not you just know things. These are the glares, the energy discernment, the psychic energy language, the psychic language discernment skill sets that every human has. If you sense these things, you will notice certain realities. The full moon is in Gemini, and Gemini can be very indecisive. So the energy can be a little bit like, I really want to do this, and I really want to do this, and I really want to do this, and I can't quite decide which one I want. Or if your flavor is currently in a deeper, darker, destructive phase, you'll be like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. I can't decide which because I feel pressured to have to do one of them. The orientations within your landscape are often ancestrally given. They're often societally, the people you hang out with, influenced. And so these conversations are why we may do some ritual magic and why we may start to listen, hear, and sense and become more aware of the astrological waves that move through a collective field. At the end of the cycle on the 20th of December, we get a new moon in Sagittarius. And it's interesting that, you know, moving from Scorpio to Sagittarius, Scorpio really loves to be with people, but loves to be perceiving and receiving and likes to be in possession of the wealth. And sometimes Scorpios will hoard energy. It's not that they are selfish. Often, on the contrary, they can be highly giving, but only in the right circumstances. So Scorpion energy, the Scorpio cycle, can be about discerning where you want to put your energy and what it is that you want to invest in. When we hit the full moon, of course, there'll be a whole lot of answers to that curious question, that curiosity, that part of you that's like deeply diving to see a little bit more about what you're about and what you choose to invest in. By the end of the cycle, you'll have some answers, but Spirit's reminding me that close to the end of the cycle, we're moving already into the festive seasons. And there are certain things, because the festive season is not a moon cycle conversation at all. None of the festivities that previously were of church paradigms relate to the natural world. Some of them did move from the seasonal landscape of what you might call the pagan system. We're going to say pagan system because pagan as a word actually came in response to this process of removing the spiritual connection to the land and hoarding it in the church system, and a system that glorified spirituality, that was upwards looking and very masculine in orientation. And I want to just name, as I say that, there is nothing wrong with God or your belief in God. There's nothing wrong with that. What we're hoping to inspire in you is your curiosity to peer a little bit openly and more fully into a deeper landscape, because that's not the only thing. That conversation often narrows, often hoards and hides things, and declares herbal magic and women who were healers as witches deserving to be burnt. And this conversation is the one that, interestingly enough, underpins a lot of the global systems and movements at the moment, because there is a strong desire to return back to land magic, because the health conditions that are rapidly moving through our populace at the moment, of course, driving the bigger pharmaceutical conversations, actually is is relative to the arising the arising of tech, modern tech, and how we are encouraged more and more to disconnect from looking out into the natural world and instead focusing on online work. This focus on online work, you know, as Spirit says, we say all things are welcome to the sun. We never shame or blame things. These are things that have arisen and for reasons. You know, they're here for reasons. Some of them are great. Obviously, the connectivity that we get with tech is great. However, I don't know if you've looked at social media and how it's being used at the moment, but these types of movements at some point do get repurposed towards something that's bringing us back to our money systems. And there's nothing wrong with earning money, of course, there's not. However, there are some energies out there that really do not want us to get back to the land, do not want us to get outside and to actually look with our own very human eyes. They want us involved in the matrix and the system that they've built to continue to drive the economic function. And the economic function, I don't know about you, but it doesn't really land in good health outcomes. It doesn't really. In fact, on the contrary, it's driving a lot of mental, emotional, physiological conditions that really don't need to be in our population and would be easily remedied if we resourced our market system back to local sourced activities and reconnected with the land. So that's our cycle. Before we go any further, I also just want to acknowledge that I do and will talk a little bit about some programs that I have. Yes, it's for sale. Yes, I just talked about the economic situation. Yes, they are online. I love the idea of doing locally based things, and I intend to do those things heading into the new year. The challenge at the moment with all of us is that many of us are actively electing to stay online, and many of us are actively electing for the convenience of self-paced courses over the effort that it takes to actually show up into a classroom or to show up into a local community hall. And that in itself, like Spirit's reminding me, as we move to 2028 and into 2030, there will be a lot of conversations around this phenomena because there's so many things that we have yet to acknowledge in our social system that is actually harming all of us. And nobody wants to declare it because at the moment we've just come off the wave of COVID, which has been problematic for a lot of us for so many reasons, economically especially. And we're not going to go into that in this particular video because it's not necessary. But if you're curious about any of these particular questions, I'd invite you to please book a session with me. I do some in Mullumbimby in person. I absolutely do in-person sessions. It's just that obviously most of you probably aren't where I usually am. And at the moment, I'm not in Mullumbimby. I'm in Adelaide, Ghana country. So I'll be there soon, though. I'm looking forward to getting back because I love my home in Mullumbimby. So moving forwards into like, where do we want to go here? So there's a cycle that's going on at the moment through this landscape of time, Sagittarius, Scorpio dance, so introspective, hoarding, and then Sagittarius is a very giving energy heading into the festive season. During this period of time, the festive season and the transition into the new year is weighing heavy on people. It's starting to make its move in, and some people are doing what they did last year, which is really wishing that the year was over and being really ready to reset. And I don't blame you. Every year, Spirit asks me to do a 5-day reset course, which is an online thing. Check out my Patreon work if that's interesting to you. I'll be doing that again. Spirit is very specific about us getting some of this magic out and available to you to start the processing of some of the stuff so that we don't keep carrying the grief of every year by just resetting for the new year and not actually looking at some of the challenges that actually could be gold that you can carry into the new year to support you better for the next year. I don't know about you, but I've been doing these practices every year for a while. And while, of course, I'm still in the chaos of everybody else's conversation because I'm a part of the collective conversation, of course I am. So I'm not out of the discomfort or the challenges, but I have a lot more self-awareness and a lot more awareness of the juice that I have inside of me that can move in ways that are continuing to support the perspective that I've been given with Spirit and Spirit reading for so long. So do come and check that out. It's called the Becoming Program. It'll be 2026. This puts a lot of pressure on us to also revisit some of our awareness of our belongingness, and especially with regards to family. And there's so many conversations that come personally with all of us in terms of family. Some of us will have very strong resistances towards being in family environments because it may carry the weight of a childhood that perhaps didn't quite go your way, or maybe over time, and you find this as we get older, of course, conversations that were never had, sometimes they still act as hooks to fear, and they fuel and feed our worry that we're not going to be represented within the family. And those things are able to be negotiated and rewoven as something that can bring you back into family, into safe family lines and conversations. If you're willing to do some of this cyclic work that Spirit has had me offering and doing myself for so long, I talk about this because I'm living proof of that. And I feel very safe in my family this year for the first time in a very long time. And I haven't been able to say that for a long time. So, or probably since I remember. So, there are ways and ways of repairing some of the parts of you that are resistant to being in family dialogues. And the outcome doesn't need to be ever that you suddenly embrace them with love and then everything is loving. Love may look like you not spending Christmas with your family this year. But these energies, because Spirit is reminding me, our energy runs in spirals. This energy of heading into Christmas and heading into the new year and heading into the reset, the spirit world that we're all participating in and belong to will bring to us certain things to trigger awareness. That doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel right. I'm still feeling embarrassed, ashamed, or I still don't want to talk to that person. These things will start to come back again and they'll start to dance in your psyche. The dance in themselves is not to torture you. It's not to retrain your abandonment sense, your abandonment awareness to convince yourself that that's all you'll get. It's there as an offering for you to finally let go of some of the suffering around it. And suffering is something that we all do. It's a part of our developmental structure as humans. This year was about shedding shedding old patterns and shedding old associations and clearing up some of the rubbish so that the next generation actually that follows us will be able to find their sense and time and space better because they're way more sensitive than we were. Bringing us back into right relationship with the world is the desire, is the goal of the great consciousness. And this includes us being able to remember that while some of the church-based systems may have left us feeling diseased and unwell or shamed or blamed or burnt at the stake as witches, our ancestors chose those patterns for a reason. And when you are able to acclimatize to this awareness that the choosing of our ancestors to continue to perpetuate this path in themselves wasn't a disease so much as it was a survival strategy for them, it helps to unlock the parts of you that are fearful to be yourself fully. If you can accept that your parents and your grandparents and the way that they move through their space and of life and time and the community that you're in, if you can see that each of these individuals were operating on their safety switch, and whenever it is that they felt unsafe, their safety switch would go. This is actually because they're not ready. They weren't ready for what it is that we are ready for. And the calling, the rage, the even the deep fears that we're all starting to really feel now, they're a calling to something better. Trust me, they are. But to get to something better, we can't hoard and hide them. We can't push them back down and push them back and then keep in the blaming and shaming game. Victimhood only gets you so far. And victimhood is also something that we all journey through. It's part of the human condition. So learning about it is helpful. And learning about it is partially why we created the Rose Initiation. So our recommendations moving forwards, of course, you can check out my work a little bit further. You can find me on Patreon, which is www.patreon.com/Dana Spirit Butterfly. That's DANA Spirit Butterfly. You can also book me for a private session if you'd like. You can reach me through Patreon or, of course, Dana Spirit Butterfly, Facebook, Instagram. And also I have a website where there's a book now button and you can go straight to my availability and book yourself your session. I actually do have a special, a discount special, and I'll write down what that discount special is, including the code. So please check that out. I have 10 sessions available for a cheap rate. So if you want a lower cost session with me one-on-one between now and the end of the year, You'll need to book it before the 15th of December though. So I'll leave the information down, and if you're watching this via my mailing list or on social media, I'll also include that here. So please do book a session. I'd love to read for you. And you can find that book now button via www.dana spiritbutterfly.com. So now that I've expressed that, these are our 3 tips moving in across this cycle that will help to ground you and to reconnect you a little bit more with a feeling of, that's better. There is no use in you staying in the tension and the resistance of you not feeling safe or well or belonging in life. These are muscles that need training. You can't just expect to have a fix for that. And the spirit world will always come and show you what it is that they're seeing about you and how they see you helping yourself. But they cannot do the work for you. Your spirit guides, your ancestors cannot do the work for you, but they can support you so that you can do the work for everybody. Because as we move within ourselves in order to orientate to something better for ourselves, we give permission to the rest of our networked mycelium to do the same. So keep focusing on doing this for you, please. 3 tips. The first is being outdoors and returning to nature. I would say that most suffering that happens in the now can be eased simply by getting outside. There's so much truth to this. If you have issues with sleep, if you have issues with weight loss, if you have issues with blood pressure, if you have issues with brain fog, most of these can be remedied by getting outside, finding nature somewhere, so a park, a tree, take your shoes off, put your feet on the earth and breathe with the earth. Be with the earth. You don't need to do more than that. The natural world will actually progressively, once you can relax and release some of this grief that you're carrying, the natural world will start to appear for you. They will start to pull on your attention and they will start to direct you towards ways that you can be more harmonious and regulated. There are a lot of techniques you can do for regulation. Breath work, of course. There's a lot of somatic experiencing. For crying out loud, there's so many techniques out there. But if you do not have the time or the space to get therapy right now, do this one thing, please. And if you do have time and space for therapy, still do this one thing, please. The spirit world is waiting to support you, but it's difficult to do so if you're in all of this suffering. It closes down your availability to be in tandem with the greater consciousness. So please get your butts outside as much as possible. If you can get outside before the sun rises, let your retinas receive natural light as it rises. If you can get outside at sunset, and again, let your sensory awareness feel the shift and change that happens in these twilight hours. They're not just beautiful to experience, but they help to reset your energy and to attune you back to the frequency of the earth. From there, things get easier. They really do. Until you get controlling in your mind, they will be easier. And if you go back to the controlling mind, you can always, every day, all the time, just get your butt outside and get your feet on some earth. It's there available all the time. Nature's best painkiller. If you need more support, there are a lot of ways to go from there. But please, this should be your number one thing, alongside drinking really good spring, naturally sourced water. Pinch of salt helps with electrolytes and cleansing. The second thing is this cycle will put us in a position where we will feel some pressure to perform. You'll either feel pressure to perform for family, pressure to perform for your loved ones, pressure to perform for your friends, pressure to perform for for the end of the year to get everything done. That pressure is going to be here. Acceptance sometimes is all you need to do. Sometimes you just need to name it. I feel this pressure. And your energy system can sometimes sort it out on its own. Naming it and not shaming it is the pathway forwards to assist you with this energy. The last thing we're going to mention is slow the F down. be slow and deliberate with what you're doing. You know, like jumping off a cliff is all well and good in the moment, but you will hurt yourself when you land on the rocks. So be a little bit more aware as we get older. You come to better realize that the impulsiveness of our youth is kind of fun, but it pushes us into spaces of regret. And regret, it's not fun to live a life where you're regretting the things that you could have, should have, would have done if only you'd been more deliberate and given both you and your family a bit more time and space to acclimatize. And as we say that, I feel like that's probably all we're going to say today in terms of the video. Um, Ritual magic, I speak a lot about this in most of my courses. You know, it's kind of a fancy way of basically saying slow down and be deliberate with your attention for a while. Give your thoughts to the greater, more sacred self. Give your thoughts and your focus to the divineness that you embody, and let yourself be at peace for a moment. Let the rituals pace you through your awareness. And that's what a lot of the work that we started to set up on Patreon, and indeed with the Claire's, the psychic language discernment skill set, and the rose initiation is very much about. There's no need to shame or blame yourself for the impulsiveness that you've done. Of course, it happens, and you'll probably feel feelings after that because that's the natural order of the human condition. You know, when we have an idea and we're like, that's so exciting, and then we don't check to see if the rest of us is on board, and then we act from there, and then afterwards it's like, my body cannot sustain this idea. Like, the answer there would be to slow down and to get back into good, right timing. Actually, the term Spirit just gave me is right timing. We are now in a time period where it is possible for you, and the planet is getting better at this idea of being in right relationship. So if you're going to end a relationship, for example, you don't just sever ties and jump off a cliff, right? Like, you have your conversations. If you're going to start a relationship, you do the same in reverse. You know, you start to have conversations. You go gently, slowly, reverently, for the fact that getting involved with people does shift your reality. And people who are impulsively in relationships are usually chasing or running away from a relationship paradigm, or a reality that they're not accepting how they're participating in it. So slow and deliberate ritual magic, bring yourself back into the now. These are practices that help you get there and attune you back to the natural world, and you'll feel safer in your body. Hooray. And your mind and your spirit. So these things actually they go really far. A little bit of ritual magic goes really far when you're practicing it with intention, and you're actually really bringing yourself into it, not just slapping it around. The last thing I really, really want to mention is please check out my Rose initiation if you haven't already. It is primarily focused at womb holders, of course it is. Those of you who don't have a womb also have an energetic womb, because you'll be able to attune to the energetics of your birth mother, the womb that you grew in and came out of, which is the very source of all human life. So it is a really great practice to, again, slow down, get deliberate, and also attune. And Rose really loves working with both men and women as a spirit ally. She is she relates to most of the world. 40,000 years of archaeological evidence of rose on the planet, and this is not just in one geographical location. There are roses in most continents that have grown as native roses. So there is so much wisdom in the rose and the rose magic, and what a lot of people think rose is a very narrow window of what rose's potential actually is, for us to reclaim our own innate sense of well-being, that beautiful, juicy, feminine landscape, which is nourishing, nurturing, and rejuvenating, and attunes us to the natural world, the world that we're actually physiologically in. And so with that, thank you for listening. I appreciate your attention and time. Much love. Have a beautiful moon cycle. I hope to see you. Please reach out if I can be of service and support. I'm really keen to grow my subtle sense development circles next year, which is a psychic development. It will help with some of this repair of getting more of you on board. And this is our gift. This is why I'm here. This is how I move with spirit. I am very happy to share what I know, and the focus is not for you to be me, the focus is for you to be you. And the focus is for you to have a container to explore what that looks like for you in a safe way, in a supported way, in a way that's attuned, body, mind, and spirit. So, much love. See you next time. All the best. Take care. Bye.